Hey everyone, welcome back to Infinite Podcast. I'm here with Simon, and today we're diving into something a bit quirky, made-up holidays. Ever wondered who comes up with these and why? Like National Pizza Day. Who decided that? And more importantly, how do these days actually affect us and our culture over time? Let's get into it.
Oh man, National Pizza Day sounds like a holiday I invented after a late night snack binge. But seriously, these made up holidays pop up from anywhere. Sometimes it's businesses trying to sell more, like more pizzas on National Pizza Day. They sneak into our lives, and suddenly we're all celebrating International Wear Pajamas to Work Day. It's wild how this stuff sticks and actually starts shaping how we act, even just for fun.
True, a lot of companies do push these for a sales boost. But think about it. Do we really need an excuse to wear pajamas to work or eat more pizza? It almost feels like we're simplifying culture into hashtags and gimmicks. I get the fun side, but does it sometimes overshadow deeper traditions? You know what I mean? Like, are we trading meaningful celebrations for something kind of superficial?
Yeah, Joe, I hear you. It's like every day is turning into a Black Friday sale for something random. But can you imagine explaining to your grandparents that we celebrate National Leave the Office Early Day? It's hilarious and kinda sad. We might be losing the plot a bit. Like instead of genuine festivity, it's about who can hashtag the funniest photo.
Exactly, Simon. It's like we're repackaging joy into convenient, marketable moments. By the way, some of these holidays have truly wild origins. Take Talk Like a Pirate Day. It actually started as a joke between two friends back in 1995, and it caught on globally. Then there's No Pants Subway Ride, which began as a prank by a comedy group in New York. Now people strip down their trousers on subways around the world every January. What started as small, humorous events just snowballs into international observances because of social media's viral nature. Madness, right?
Oh, totally madness, Joe. It's like every tiny joke has the potential to explode on the internet. You've got folks out there just waiting for something silly to break up their day to day grind, and boom, a random pirate accent becomes a global phenomenon. And while it's all in good fun, it does make you wonder if we're diluting our more traditional holidays. We're stacking up these random days without stopping to think about, the kind of values or memories we're really creating.
Yeah, and you make a good point about diluting traditional holidays. But also, let's flip it. Maybe these quirky days actually help people lighten up a bit, in a world that's often way too serious. But then, where do we draw the line? We're celebrating everything from sushi to lost socks, which is fun but kind of trivializes the idea of a holiday. Are we just filling our calendars with fluff instead of focusing on stuff that really matters, like connecting with family or reflecting on significant historical events? What do you think? Are we just creating noise or genuinely adding value to our busy lives here?
Yeah, Joe, that's a really solid point. It's like, on one hand, these goofy holidays do throw in some unexpected fun into our kind of hectic lives. It's a break from the serious stuff, which we probably need now and then. But you're right. Where's the line? Are we just cluttering up our year with nonsense? Like instead of meaningful connections, are we just ticking boxes on weird holidays? I mean, does celebrating National Donut Day really add value? Or is it just an excuse to chow down? What do you think? Are these days making us happier or just busier?
Well, Simon, to dig into whether these holidays make us happier or just busier, let's look at some facts. Psychologically, celebrating can give a brief mood boost and a sense of belonging when done in social settings. Like on National Donut Day, bakeries see spikes in visits, creating minor economic boosts locally. But let's consider societal impacts. Made-up holidays often lack the spiritual or deep-rooted cultural significance seen in traditional holidays. Research points out that while festivities like Christmas or Thanksgiving drive more profound societal values, such as gratitude and giving, these lighter celebratory days are mainly about immediate gratification. So it's a mix, right? They add some fleeting happiness and social media buzz, but might dilute deeper societal narratives, which are essential for long-term communal spirit and values cohesion. It's a delicate balance between infusing some spontaneity into life and maintaining meaningful commemorations that preserve cultural heritage. Maybe it's about finding a middle ground where both can coexist without overshadowing each other.
Hey everyone who's just tuning in. We're here chatting about all these made-up holidays, their quirky origins, and what they kind of mean for us as a society. Joe and I have been diving deep into this. Like, we started out laughing about stuff like National Donut Day, but it turns out there's more to these than just fun hashtags and excuses to indulge. We've been asking, do these playful days on our calendar help lighten up our lives, or are they kind of cluttering up what holidays are really about? There's a bit of both, honestly. While they bring some temporary joy and can spark minor economic boosts in places like local bakeries, they often lack the deeper cultural significance that ties communities together long term. It's really about striking this balance, keeping the fun while preserving the profound. So yeah, are we celebrating too much fluff, or is it cool to indulge in these light-hearted breaks? Stick around as we keep digging into this topic.
That's exactly it, Simon. Maybe the real question here is about moderation. How much whimsical celebration can we sprinkle in before it starts to overshadow the weightier traditions that hold communities together? It's like putting too much icing on a cake. Sure, it's sweet and everyone loves a little extra frosting, but at what point does it just become too much of a good thing?
Oh, totally, Joe. I mean, who doesn't love a bit of frosting, right? But you smack on too much, and suddenly you can't even taste the cake anymore. Maybe we're just smothering the real flavors of our culture with all these extra celebrations. Isn't it kind of weird that we might not even remember what we're really celebrating half the time?
Yeah, Simon, you're really onto something there. Like, when you think about it, these made-up holidays could be causing some real confusion. Instead of deepening our understanding and appreciation for the core values behind traditional celebratory days, we might just be diluting them with all this fluff. It's like trying to remember a dozen birthdays versus just your closest friends. The more you add, the less special each one feels. Hey, let's consider how different cultures view this phenomenon. Is this trend of creating trivial holidays primarily a Western thing? Because from what I've seen, many cultures have very structured, meaningful festivals and holidays that have been around for centuries without much change. Could this also be a cultural shift where we in the West are moving towards more commercialization and less about heritage preservation? What do you think? Does this reflect a deeper societal shift, or is it just harmless fun?
Oh, Joe, you're hitting the nail on the head there. It sure feels like we might be leaning more towards commercialization and stepping away from those deep-rooted traditions. Maybe it's this urge to keep things light and market-friendly that's driving the West in particular. But hey, it does open up a can of worms about what these shifts mean for cultural identity down the line. There's so much more to unpack here. Like, are we trading depth for convenience? Really makes you wonder what the next generation's calendar is going to look like. What do you folks think? Keep this chat spinning and let us know your take.
You know, Simon, diving into this whole celebration clutter, it's interesting to pivot a bit and look at the broader picture, namely the economic impact. These quirky holidays aren't just about hashtags and laughs. They also ignite shopping sprees that can boom local and even global markets. Like, take Black Friday, originally just a post-Thanksgiving sale. Now it practically dictates yearly performance for many businesses. What do you make of this transformation from simple celebrations to economic triggers?
Yeah, Joe, that's a wild shift, right? If you think about it, these days like Black Friday have turned into something huge beyond just picking up a cheap TV. Businesses are actually structuring their entire year around these events, banking on the fact that consumers are ready to splash out. It's not just retail. Restaurants, online platforms, even small pop-ups are timing their big promotions or releases to align with these made-up holidays. And it's not always about the discounts anymore. Some brands launch exclusive products that you can only get on those days, hyping it up to create this massive buzz. It's like every part of our economy gets this jolt, from manufacturing to advertising, all rolling on the wheels of these consumer-centric holidays. It's kind of brilliant, but also a bit scary if you think about how much influence these dates hold over business strategies and consumer behavior. They're not just marking time, they're making markets dance.
Yeah, Simon, that's a solid point. But let's rethink this from another angle. These economic booms, triggered by novel celebrations, while they undoubtedly benefit the pockets of big businesses, are we maybe ignoring the smaller local shops getting buried under the massive marketing budgets of larger chains? Like, sure, giant retailers and global brands see major spikes in sales around these special dates, but it's a kind of rewriting the competitive landscape in a way that could squeeze out the little guys. And then, think about the consumer side of things. It's not just about splurging smartly or grabbing deals anymore. This frenzy fosters a culture of impulse buying and unnecessary spending, fed by the fear of missing out on some limited time only deal. So are we educating our consumers or cleverly manipulating them to play into these commercial traps? It's fascinating, really, but also a bit concerning how holidays morphed into strategic high sales days, shaping both market dynamics and consumer habits. What do you think? Does the good balance out the bad here, or are we tipping towards something less sustainable?
Oh, Joe, you're opening a whole can of worms here. It's like we're all pawns in this mega marketing chess game. We binge on sales like it's our last meal.
Absolutely, Simon. Digging deeper into this consumer frenzy sparked by novel celebrations, it's striking to look at the numbers. For instance, Alibaba's Singles Day in China has eclipsed Black Friday sales, pulling in a record $38 billion in one day back in 2019. It showcases how these manufactured holidays are not just local, but have a colossal global influence. In the US, Small Business Saturday, a response to the Black Friday craze, aims to divert some of that frenetic spending towards smaller local businesses. It's had some success, with an estimated $19.8 billion spent in 2020. This highlights a movement toward more conscious consumerism during holiday spikes, but also underlines the massive scale of economic activity centered around these days. Cyber Monday further illustrates the trend toward digital consumerism, with an astounding $10.8 billion spent in 2020. This shift online reflects broader changes in shopping behaviors, potentially benefiting bigger e-commerce platforms while sidelining smaller retailers who might not have robust online systems. Thus, these celebrations aren't just about cultural shifts, they're reshaping economic frameworks and business strategies on a macro scale, often setting new consumer expectations and establishing norms that impact market dynamics profoundly year-round.
Whoa, those numbers are mind-boggling, Joe. It's like every holiday turns into this ginormous shopping bonanza. This makes me think, if holidays were superheroes, Black Friday would definitely be the Hulk of sales and Alibaba's Singles Day. That's like if the Flash went on a shopping spree, fast and record-breaking. But with all these big players getting bigger boosts, it really makes you wonder, what's the real cost of a deal?
Uh, yeah, Simon, you hit the nail on the head there. It's almost like these shopping holidays have morphed into their own brand of superheroes, swelling up the marketplace with those quick, massive cash influxes. But let's strip it back for a sec. What's really underneath all this? Beyond the buzz and the insane sales figures, are we maybe losing sight of, the essence of gifting and seasonal joy? Like, when companies focus so much on profits and competition during these periods, do you think that shifts our cultural perspective on what a holiday is supposed to be about? Instead of focusing on connection and generosity, are we just, reinforcing a cycle of consumption? What's your take on that, Simon?
You've pretty much nailed it, Joe. It's like holidays have turned into this feeding frenzy at the shopping mall. But here's a spicy take. What if we flipped this script? Imagine a holiday where instead of buying, we focused on bartering or swapping gifts. A kind of throwback to old school exchanges that might make us rethink the joy of giving. Less about cash changing hands and more about the stories behind the swaps. Could be wild, right? What do you folks think? Could something like that even fly today?
That's a pretty radical idea, Simon. It kind of reminds me of the time I stumbled upon this local holiday market where people were actually doing something similar, trading items instead of buying. like books for homemade cookies or hand-knitted scarves for pottery. It was really cool seeing folks genuinely excited not about how much they spent, but what they traded. And speaking of outlandish holiday products, at this same market, there was this one stall. Man, it was selling Christmas ornaments shaped like famous historical figures, but with a twist. They all had Santa hats. It's kind of hilarious thinking about Einstein or Cleopatra decked out in festive gear. So even in these small community-focused events, you still see that touch of holiday lunacy shining through. What do you think? Could the charm and humor of those crazy holiday twists encourage more meaningful exchanges in these scenarios?
Joe, that market sounds like a blast. Swapping goods and rocking Santa hats on Cleopatra? That's the kind of holiday spirit I can get behind. It just shows there's room to blend tradition with cheeky fun and still keep things meaningful. And who knows, maybe mixing a bit of humor and heart could be the secret sauce to reshaping our consumer frenzy into something a bit more heartfelt. What other wild and whimsical holiday ideas are out there, folks? Let's keep this convo rolling.
That's true, Simon. Mixing humor and holidays actually sparks some pretty wild product ideas out there. Speaking of which, have you seen some of the zany stuff they drum up for so-called festive occasions? Like for Talk Like a Pirate Day. I saw this pirate phrase book. It's supposed to help you perfect that pirate accent. And don't get me started on Leap Day. They've got leaping suits that supposedly make your leap year leaps even more epic. Totally bonkers, right? What are some of the craziest holiday-themed products you've come across?
Oh man, Joe, those are just the tip of the iceberg. You know what tops my list? There's this National Lost Sock Memorial Day, and get this, they actually sell a lost sock search kit. It includes a flashlight, a back mirror, and some weird sock sniffing spray. I mean, come on, who's buying that? But it cracks me up, it's so out there. And let's not forget about National Nothing Day. There's legit nothing-themed merchandise, like empty boxes labeled nothing as gifts. It's hilarious and kind of genius in a way, selling the concept of nothing for something. But you know what, Joe? While some might see these products as completely ludicrous, isn't there something kind of refreshing about just embracing the silly side of things? I mean, if it brings a smile or a laugh, maybe it ain't all that bad. What's your take on this whole wild world of wacky holiday merch?
Oh man, Simon, that lost sock search kit kills me. Sometimes I think about the people who actually come up with these ideas. Like there's got to be a mad genius somewhere chuckling as they package that box of nothing. It's just so surreal. And, it really does bring a warmth to my heart thinking about everyone out there unwrapping these silly gifts. We live in a world that's super serious most of the time, so seeing something so off the wall whispers a reminder not to take everything so seriously. Life can be tough, budget's tight, but somebody somewhere is going to crack up over a manual for perfecting pirate banter or a kit for finding missing socks. And isn't making someone's day brighter kind of the ultimate goal? What do we cherish more at the end of laughter with friends and family or the stuff piled under the tree? Really makes you think, right? These holidays might be made up, but the happiness, that part's as real as it gets.
Absolutely, Joe. It's like we're in an alternate universe where the longer you laugh, the better the gift. Who's laughing now, highbrow holidays? We've got laughter packs and pirate phrases. I'd trade a fancy dinner for that kind of fun any day. Makes you want to invent your own wacky holiday, doesn't it? What would yours be, Joe?
Yeah, Simon, creating a personal wacky holiday sounds like a blast. Reminds me when I was younger, my buddies and I had this unofficial tradition called Mismatch Day. It's kind of silly, but hang in there. Every year, on the first snow day, which you never knew when it'd be, we'd wear the most mismatched outfits possible. Think stripes with polka dots, summer shorts with winter coats, sandals over wool socks. Absolute chaos, man. And you know what? Looking back, just like these nutty products we're talking about, Mismatch Day wasn't really about fashion disasters. It was about breaking the routine, sparking laughter, and just shaking off the winter blues. So here's to mismatching and embracing the lunacy every now and then. because sometimes goofing up the norm is exactly what we need to keep things vibrant and fun, right? What do you think? Should we bring Mismatch Day back? Make it official?
Oh, Mismatch Day sounds legendary, Joe. Absolutely should make a comeback. Official holiday status and all. Just picture the hashtags and mismatched selfies flooding social media. And hey, if that doesn't scream outlandish holiday spirit to someone out there, what will? So, folks, what's your take? Got any crazy holiday traditions or hilarious products you've stumbled upon? Let's keep this laughter train going and maybe pull a few more quirky holidays out of the hat.
Totally. An official Mismatch Day would be a sight to see on social media. You know, Simon, all this talk about madcap holidays really makes me wonder about the bigger picture, though. Like, are these just fun breaks from the usual, or do they have more significance? Digging into it, there's this lively debate on whether these spruced up holidays just dilute our genuine cultural celebrations, or maybe they rubber stamp some extra unity and enjoyment into our calendars. What's your stance on this? Are we risking the uniqueness of traditional festivities, or is it all in good fun, adding new layers to our cultural identity?
Ah, Joe, I see where this is stirring the pot. And you gotta admit, there's something to be said for sticking to traditions that have deep roots and meanings in our history, right? Like, creating these novel holidays can sometimes feel like we're just filling up our calendars with noise, risking overshadowing the rich cultural stories that traditional holidays carry. Consider how commercialized some celebrations have become. Originally meant as beautiful moments of reflection or remembrance, they can end up feeling more like perfect opportunities for sales. So, yeah, it's fun, but maybe at a cost, diluting the uniqueness of communities' heritages, which could, gradually shift their identity more towards consumerism rather than culture focused gatherings. So while new holidays might bring us together for a laugh or two, maintaining a strong sense of the original cultural narratives is crucial to keeping our identity intact, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly, Simon. And diving deeper into this, when you look at how these non traditional holidays can sometimes overshadow the more rooted ones, it's like we start valuing novelty over heritage, you know? This can potentially lead to less engagement with traditions that have been passed down through generations, which are key in maintaining a cultural identity. But on the flip side, if done right, introducing new holidays doesn't necessarily have to be detrimental. They could actually enhance cultural awareness by sort of blending traditional elements with modern twists. It's all about balance, man. Ensuring these holidays don't just turn into commercial hustles, but keep connecting us, perhaps even educating us about different aspects of our culture or others' cultures. Future-wise, I think keeping feedback loops where communities can weigh in on what these holidays represent could help, like making sure they evolve in ways that reflect real values instead of purely commercial interests. These could really shape how upcoming generations perceive and participate in both new and old festivities, making sure there's substance behind the celebrations, not just sales.
Joe, that's spot on. Imagine a holiday where everyone votes on the theme each year, keeping it fresh while rooted in real values. Could mix things up and keep everyone engaged, making sure those holidays hit the mark on fun and substance, right? What do fans think? Would you vote for your next holiday?
Absolutely, Simon. A holiday where everyone gets a say could really democratize how we celebrate and connect. It'd be like a cultural mini revolution every year. Imagine the wild themes and meaningful conversations that could come out of that. Who wouldn't love to have a voice in crafting something so inclusive? All right, listeners, would you cast your vote on this? What theme would you want for next year's big day?
Oh, totally, Joe. Giving everyone a voice sounds pretty engaging, and honestly, it could lead to some seriously memorable celebrations. Just think of the diversity in themes we could see. So, listeners, what do you say? Would you jump on board for something like this? And what kind of wild or meaningful theme would you want to throw into the mix for our big democratic holiday next year?
You know, Simon, while this idea of a democratic holiday seems like a real crowd pleaser, there's an opposing viewpoint that's pretty valid too. Think about it. If we're always updating and changing the themes based on popular vote, could it end up diluting the core of what any particular cultural holiday is meant to represent? Like, traditional holidays carry deep meanings and lessons from history. They've been shaped over generations to reflect key values and teach us something significant about our past or culture. If we open up everything to a yearly vote, there's a risk that these deeper narratives might get lost under the ever-changing themes driven by majority interests, which might lean towards current trends rather than long-lasting values. This doesn't mean innovation isn't good, but perhaps keeping some traditions untouched allows them to serve as fixed points of reflection and unity amidst our rapidly shifting societal values. It's about balance and ensuring that while we innovate, we don't lose sight of the enduring aspects of cultural identity that these historical celebrations anchor us to. What do you think, Simon? Am I too traditional here?
Oh, wow, Joe, that's a pretty deep dive there, isn't it? You're hitting something crucial about the essence of those time-honored traditions. Like, if we keep tweaking them, do they start to lose their original flavor? It's kind of like that game where you whisper a message down the line, and by the end, it's a totally different story. So yeah, I get your point. There's something grounding about having those unchanging holidays that tell the same story, the way it was intended over centuries. They're like cultural anchors, right? Keeping us tied to our roots amidst all the noise of the modern world. But then balancing that with some new flavors could keep things vibrant for younger generations who might find traditional stuff a bit out of touch. Kind of gives everybody a stake in it. A tough call, Joe, but definitely worth pondering. How do we innovate without losing what the days meant to represent? What an epic balancing act.
Absolutely, Simon. It's like walking a tightrope between tradition and innovation. Maybe the trick is not just to balance, but to blend, eh? Finding that sweet spot where old meets new, keeping everyone on their toes and engaged. What do you think our listeners might suggest to keep this balance without tipping too far either way?
Oh, for sure, Joe. But hey, speaking of keeping things fresh and relevant, how about we dive into something that's gaining traction? Eco-friendly festivals. They're all the rage now, blending traditions with a green twist. So what's our take on turning celebrations into sustainability champions?
Oh yeah, Simon. Diving into eco-friendly festivals is like hitting two birds with one stone, right? Celebrations that don't just bring people together, but do it in a way that's mindful of our environmental footprint. That's the future. So why do these green tweaks matter? They reduce waste, cut down on emissions, and really push everyone to think about sustainability even while having fun. Take some festivals that have gone straw-free or have mandated biodegradable utensils only. It significantly drops the amount of non-degradable waste produced. There are also those big events using solar panels to power their stages, a smart move. And think about this. The impact of traditional festivals on local environments can be massive. You got tons of garbage left behind, energy consumption spikes, not forgetting noise pollution. These eco-friendly practices, man, they help us keep celebrating without leaving such a heavy mark on our planet. What's your take on this, Simon? Ready to go green for the next big bash?
Joe, going green sounds great on paper. And yeah, these initiatives, solar panels, biodegradable utensils, they're definitely steps in the right direction. But here's a thought. Is it enough? Like, just because we slap some solar panels up and ditch plastic straws, are we really making a dent or just scratching the surface? I'm all for eco-friendly moves, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it feels like these festivals might be doing the bare minimum to label themselves as green. It could become, more about marketing, the old greenwashing trap, than actual significant environmental benefits. So, what say we push the envelope a bit further, huh? How about festival organizers set up serious recycling programs, commit to zero waste, or even offset their carbon footprint by investing in renewable energy projects? If we're going to do this, let's go all the way. Make those changes meaningful, not just symbolic. What do you think, too radical, or is it time to amp up our game here?
Spot on, Simon. Slapping a green label on it doesn't mean much if the actions are just for show. Real change requires going all in. So yeah, let's challenge these festivals to truly embrace sustainability. Go big or go home, right? Let's crank up this eco-revolution.
Absolutely, Joe. Maybe it's time we all stop being spectators at this eco revolution and start being actual players. So, listeners, how about it? Are you ready to amp up the green in your life? Let's get this planet party started.
Absolutely, Simon. And diving deeper into this eco-revolution at festivals, we got to remember that it's not just about the big stuff. Sure, solar panels and zero waste are huge, but what about the smaller everyday choices? Like, are we considering local sourcing for food and materials to cut down on transportation emissions? Also, ensuring all promotions and communications are digital to reduce paper use. That's important too. Plus, education plays a huge part. At these festivals, why not introduce workshops or booths dedicated to teaching attendees about sustainability practices they can adapt at home or in their communities? It's these layer-up strategies that can make a festival truly green rather than just like vaguely eco-friendly. So listeners, think broader. Becoming eco-friendly demands action, both big and small. What's one sustainable practice you could see making a difference at your favorite festival or event?
Oh, totally, Joe. You're hitting the nail on the head with that one. Thinking small can sometimes make a big impact, right? Like local sourcing not only cuts down on emissions, but also strengthens local economies. And who wouldn't prefer fresh local fare while jamming out to their favorite bands? Plus, about those workshops and educational booths, brilliant stuff. It's like sneaking in veggies into a smoothie. You enjoy it and get healthier without even realizing it. These festivals could literally shape greener habits in fun ways. So, bringing these elements into the festival scene, not just as an option, but as a norm, could start some serious eco friendly waves. Don't you think?
Yeah, Simon, I get where you're coming from with the local sourcing and interactive booths. It's smart, it's slick, but here's the rub. Is adding a couple of eco-friendly cherry on tops enough to really shake things up? We're talking about festivals that pull in tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. Big numbers. The way I see it, these moves are positive, sure, but could still be like small drops in a very large ocean. If we're serious about making waves, shouldn't there be some kind of regulatory framework? Something that really pushes festival organizers to not just opt in, but to get on board or get left behind. And here's another thought. Energy use at these events is huge. Sure, solar panels help, but what about all the vehicle traffic to and from the event? That's massive carbon emissions right there. Maybe it's time to think about shuttles, carpools, even incentives for biking. Really rethink how everyone gets to and from these gigs. So yeah, nice starting points, but let's beef this up. Make sustainability impossible to ignore. What do you think, Simon? Ready to lobby for bigger, bolder moves here?
Oh, Joe, I'm with you. Let's crank it to 11 and make sustainability the headline act, not just a sideshow. Are we ready for electric shuttle mosh pits?
Spot on, Simon. Speaking of taking green initiatives up a notch, let's pivot to another arena where sustainability is making big waves: weddings. Yeah, you heard right. Zero waste weddings are becoming a thing. Imagine tying the knot without leaving a footprint. It's like the ultimate love letter to the planet, huh? What's your take on making that big day sustainable from start to finish?
You bet, Joe. Zero waste weddings. What a smooth move for the sustainable minded lovebirds out there. So get this, your average wedding can generate pounds and pounds of waste from things like disposable decor to food wastage and all those paper invitations that end up in the trash. But here's where it gets cozy. There are couples who totally rock this by going digital with their invites, opting for reusable or compostable dinnerware, and serving locally sourced farm-to-table grub. And decorations? Think biodegradable confetti, or even potted plants that guests can take home and plant. Talk about green memorabilia. So you want to support the planet while declaring eternal love? A zero-waste wedding isn't just practical. It's super romantic in its own eco-chic way, don't you think? Pass me an invite to that guilt-free party any day.
Oh, totally, Simon. A zero-waste wedding does sound romantic and all eco-chic, yeah. But let's chew on this a bit. How practical are these ideas really when you're planning for a big crowd? I mean, digital invites are sleek, sure, but there's always that one relative who's not tech savvy, right? They might feel left out. And about the decorations, using potted plants sounds nifty, but transporting them poses its own environmental footprint. And not to be a downer, but what if guests forget those plants in the corner of their patio? Huh? So, while the intentions are spot on, making it all work smoothly might need more than just good intentions. Maybe there needs to be some serious planning or even professional help specialized in green events to make sure none of that effort goes to waste. What's your take, buddy? Do couples need a green wedding planner or something?
Ah, Joe, you've touched on some gritty details there. It's like, yeah, pursuing a zero waste wedding is super noble, but the logistics, definitely tricky with a big crowd. You're spot on about those tech challenged relatives. We definitely can't leave Aunt Mabel scratching her head over a digital invite, right? As for the decorations, transporting a load of potted plants could get messy, and yeah, might even rack up a carbon tally that defeats the point. So, what are we really gaining here? I think having a green wedding planner isn't just helpful, it's almost essential. Someone who knows the ropes to make sure all this green goodness doesn't wilt on the big day, like ensuring everyone's included and keeping those plants moving from party to patio without missing a beat or, breaking the planet. Taking the leap with professional help might just be the anchor these eco lovers need. What do you say? Ready to plan some tree friendly tie knots?
Totally, Simon. Makes you wonder if the next big wedding trend is saying I do to a sustainability consultant. Imagine that. Full-time eco-wedding planners bustling around with compost bins and seed packets. Now that's a game changer. What's next on the green horizon, huh?
Oh, yeah, Joe. Talking about a game changer in the wedding scene makes me think of this couple I know. So there they were, planning their big day, and really wanted to push the envelope with the eco friendly vibe. They went all out local foods, upcycled decorations, heck, even their rings were made from reclaimed metals. So, on their wedding day, you could see little touches everywhere. Guests were sipping from glass jars that they could take home, and instead of a big fancy cake prone to wastage, they had these mini desserts all sourced locally. At the end of the night, barely any trash. Can you believe it? They proved that with the right mix of passion and planning, pulling off an eco-savvy wedding isn't just a pipe dream, it's totally doable. Kind of brings a whole new meaning to green with envy, doesn't it, Joe?
Oh, that's a heartwarmer for sure, Simon. But here's the flip side. While it sounds lovely and all, pulling off such a wedding often hinges on having the right resources at hand, right? Like, not every couple has access to vendors who can cater to such specific green needs, or might find those reclaimed metal rings a stretch to their budget. And then there's the guest perspective. Sure, sipping from glass jars sounds quaint, but I'd bet some might miss the usual glam and extravaganza of traditional weddings. It's like, is everyone ready to embrace these changes just yet? So while I'm all for reducing waste, there's got to be a balance where sustainability meets feasibility without tossing out the fun and flair that many expect from a big day. Making it accessible and appealing, that's the real challenge, don't you think?
Yeah, Joe. That's the real crunchy bit, isn't it? Trying to balance sustainability with everyone's idea of a big hurrah wedding. Accessibility and familiarity definitely play huge roles here. Not every guest at a wedding will be thrilled about 100% green changes, like sipping from glass jars or eating mini desserts instead of a towering cake. And you're right on the budget thing, too. It's cool to talk about reclaimed metal rings and local organic food, but boy, the price tags can fly high fast. But here's a thought. Maybe couples can start small, like incorporating just a couple of these eco-friendly ideas into their traditional wedding plans. Little steps like using digital invites where possible and simpler eco-goodies as favors could ease everyone into this new wave without freaking out. It's kind of like dipping your toes before diving into the deep end. You know? Keep a bit of the glam, but tweak things just enough to nod at sustainability. That way, it's not just about meeting budget constraints or making all guests happy. It's about slowly changing perceptions of what a dream wedding can look like. Sustainable, yet still, sparkly. What do you think, Joe? Are we onto something here?
Absolutely, Simon. Dipping toes sounds like a perfect compromise. Adding just a splash of green might inspire bigger waves in the future.
Oh, for sure, Joe. Like starting small can really plant the seed for bigger changes later. So imagine this. A couple does something simple at their wedding, like providing biodegradable utensils or having a single trash point for recycling, right? These little things might start conversations among guests who might not have thought about eco friendly practices before. Then there's also the vendor angle to consider. As more couples ask for sustainable options, vendors could be encouraged or even like nudged to offer greener choices as standard, kind of snowballing the whole thing forward. Basically, it's creating demand by raising awareness during such an important day. So, yeah, small splashes of green at weddings might just ripple out and make waves in the overall event industry. Isn't that kind of exciting to think about?
No doubt, Simon. Starting small but thinking big could truly revolutionize the wedding scene. Imagine each sustainable choice sparking a trend, turning those ripples into waves across the entire industry. Now that's a future worth toasting to. What's the next little green step our listeners might dream up for their big day?
Absolutely, Joe. Toasting to a greener future, one step at a time. Speaking of green steps and the whole try and try again spirit, it reminds me of some laugh-worthy attempts in the eco-festival scene. You know those ambitious but kind of clumsy first efforts to go green? Like this one time. This festival tried to introduce compostable plates and forks, right? Turns out, they didn't set up enough bins labeled clearly for compostables. So, people were just chucking them anywhere. Regular trash, recycling, you name it. Kinda defeated the purpose, huh? It's these funny oops moments that really show us how good intentions need solid planning to back 'em up. Got any quirky stories on that front, Joe?
Oh man, Simon, that's hilarious. Um, Talk about a green mishap, right? It's like when you have the right idea, but just, miss the mark on execution. Kind of makes me think of this other festival. They wanted to cut down on paper use by going digital for all event maps and schedules. Sounds smart, but they didn't consider that not everyone would be smartphone savvy or have access to charging stations. So you had groups of people kind of wandering around, lost, trying to find stages or food vendors because their phones had died or they couldn't download the app. It ended up causing more confusion than if they'd just used some recycled paper guides. They definitely learned their lesson about considering your audience when planning eco-friendly initiatives.
Uh, Absolutely spot on, Joe. That's the kind of funny you can't make up. Everyone bumbling around with dead phones. It's like, hey, let's save trees, but maybe cause a little chaos while we're at it. These stories crack me up, but they're super important, right? They teach event planners about balancing eco-friendliness with practicality. And it reminds me of this one attempt at a zero-waste concert where they tried using reusable cups for all drinks. The idea was, great, but they totally underestimated how many cups they'd need. Halfway through, people were waiting for someone else to finish their drink just so they could have a turn. It turned into like a weird game of musical cups. It's mistakes like these that, while they're sorta hilarious, also help everyone learn and get better at this sustainable event planning gig. Making sure we got enough cups or signs might seem small, but hey, details matter when you're trying to change the world one party at a time, huh?
Oh, that's classic. Musical cups at a concert can't get more eco-entertaining than that.
Right, Joe? It's like those eco goofs just add a special spice to any event. But here's a kicker. While these mishaps are funny, they actually nudge us all closer to really effective solutions. You know? Like, think about it. After the whole musical cup saga, that festival I mentioned, they totally revamped their system. Next time around, they implemented a cup deposit scheme to ensure there was always enough to go around without interrupting the vibe. Turned out way smoother. So, even though these initial flubs can be kind of embarrassing or inconvenient, they sort of force organizers to innovate and ultimately create better systems. You got to trip over the right step before you find the best way to climb the stairs, if you ask me. What do you think, Joe? Ever see a blunder turn into a win like that?
Oh, for sure, Simon. It's like those initial mess ups really set the stage for smarter strategies. That cup deposit idea is such a smart pivot. It not only solves the problem, but it's also encouraging people to, be more conscious about their usage. And that's a massive win in the eco book. And here's another thing. After witnessing several of these festival flops, I notice there's often a spike in volunteer engagements afterward. People see the goof ups and they're inspired or kind of driven to get involved to help make things better. It turns spectators into participants, which is incredible because with more hands on deck, festivals can manage these green initiatives way more effectively. So yeah, these blunders aren't just learning moments. They're like rallying calls that draw communities closer together around sustainable causes. You gotta love how collective action springs from just trying to do the right thing, even if it gets a bit messy at first, huh?
Absolutely, Joe. It's amazing to see those initial hiccups sparking such positive community action. These stories, as fun and flustering as they may be, really highlight the growth in our understanding of making events green without losing the fun and festiveness. It makes you wonder what next big green blunder turned wonder will pop up at upcoming festivals, right? Like there's always something new to learn and laugh about on this eco journey. What do you think will be the next big oops that we'll end up cheering for?
Absolutely. Diving into what's next is always a thrill. Imagine, with all the tech at our fingertips, where will the next slip up come that actually catapults us forward? It's kind of like being on the edge of your seat at a thriller.
No kidding, Joe. With tech constantly evolving, the slip ups are just as exciting as the breakthroughs because you never know which mistake will lead to the next big thing in eco friendly event planning. Speaking of cutting edge stuff shaping up the scene, we've seen things like biodegradable glitter and solar powered stages starting to make waves. And get this, there's also AI being used to optimize event resource management, like predicting the flow of attendees for reduced waste and energy use. Super smart, right? Future trends could definitely include more use of AI for things like real-time updates on waste management and even smarter, greener transport planning for big crowds. But yeah, about those ethical implications, it's crucial to consider how these advancements mesh with traditional practices and cultures. Introducing high-tech solutions needs to be done respectfully, ensuring it enhances rather than overshadows the cultural essence of celebrations. It makes you think. Balancing tradition with innovation could itself become a new art form in sustainable event planning. What's your take on integrating all this tech without stepping on cultural toes, Joe?
Yeah, Simon, the tech side is super enticing. AI and all that high-tech jazz are revolutionizing things for sure. But you're hitting a nerve on the cultural implications. Like, it's one thing to bring in these shiny new tools, but another to make sure they don't trample over traditions that hold deep meaning. Integrating stuff like AI has got to be more than just plug and play. It needs a thoughtful approach. Take festival locations rooted in specific cultural histories. Slapping modern tech all over them can feel invasive, right? We've got to tread carefully, mesh the old with the new in ways that respect the past. And about pushing boundaries, it's great until it isn't, right? I mean, what if in our chase for the next big eco-innovation, we end up alienating the very communities we're trying to celebrate or help? It's a tricky line to walk, balancing edge-cutting tech with age-old customs. How far do you think we can push this envelope without ripping it, huh?
Oh, you nailed it, Joe. It's like we're walking a tightrope between the Jetsons and the Flintstones here, trying to rocket into the future without slipping on the traditions of the past. Makes you wonder, what's the blueprint for getting that balance just right without toppling over?
Definitely a high-wire act, Simon. Maybe the key is co-creation, involving communities in the tech development process. Could bridge that gap between the high-tech and the time-honored. What do you think about throwing tradition-inspired tech into the mix?
Joe, that idea of tradition-inspired tech, spot on. It's like if we weave traditional values and insights directly into the tech development phase, we're not just parachuting in with our flashy gadgets and solutions, right? we'd actually be building something that resonates from the ground up. I mean, think about using local materials or techniques to enhance technological tools, kind of marrying the old and the new seamlessly. Could totally lead to more sustainable and culturally aligned innovations. Absolutely love where your head's at. So, diving deeper into this co-creation angle, how do you think communities can really take the reins here without feeling steamrolled by all the high-tech momentum?
Oh, hey there, folks, just tuning in. Joe here with Simon, and man, we've been diving deep into some super cool stuff of blending cutting edge tech with traditional culture to pioneer eco innovation at events. It's like trying to rocket into the future without forgetting our roots. Really fascinating balance, right? We've chatted about stuff like AI optimizing resources and even using local traditions to inspire new technologies, making sure we don't steamroll cultural values while we're at it. We're thinking maybe involving communities directly could make this whole tech integration smoother and more respectful. So yeah, that's kind of the gist, and it's pretty exciting stuff. Stick around for more on how these ideas might unfold.
Absolutely, Joe. This whole chat's got me thinking about that one time, like when I was at this small music festival up in the mountains, totally off-grid vibe. They were using this solar-powered sound system, which was honestly just as booming as any conventional setup, but way cooler, because it was all clean energy, right? What really stuck with me was how they merged this super modern tech with the local culture. The organizers collaborated with native artisans to create the stage decor, and even some of the instruments played were traditional to the area. So it wasn't just about plugging in new tech into an old setting. It was more like weaving a story where both elements, the high tech and the culturally significant, enhanced each other. It kind of showed me firsthand how blending these worlds can not only preserve but actually enrich the essence of both. Really drives home the point about the beauty and depth we can reach when tech meets tradition, don't you think? How do you see this kind of synergy playing out in larger scales, Joe?
That's a wicked example, Simon. It's like magic when tech and tradition mesh well. You get something that resonates on so many levels. And thinking bigger scale, imagine festivals worldwide adopting this model. It could revolutionize the scene entirely.
Yeah, Joe, that vision is wild and super inspiring. But if I play devil's advocate here for a sec, scaling up these tech tradition hybrids might not be all smooth sailing, you know? Like there's always the risk of diluting the very traditions we're trying to preserve if things get too commercialized or if the tech overshadows the traditional aspects. Take, for instance, when large-scale events try adopting local traditions globally, they can unintentionally turn those deeply cultural practices into mere attractions or gimmicks. This could lead to a kind of cultural homogenization, where unique local elements lose their true meaning just to fit into a global, eco-friendly template. Also, the tech side isn't foolproof either. High-tech solutions often require significant resources, both financial and material, that might not be sustainable in the long run or accessible to all communities. So, while the potential benefits are huge, it's kind of crucial to tread this path carefully, ensuring that both the technological advancements and cultural integrity are handled with, real respect and understanding. What do you think, Joe? Can we really manage this balance as we scale up?
Oh, Simon, you just hit the jackpot of challenges. It's a real tightrope walk. But hey, navigating these complicated waters is part of what could make the journey thrilling, right? If we dial in that balance you're talking about, it could be a game changer on a monumental scale.
Yeah, totally, Joe. It's like navigating through a maze where each turn could lead to something awesome or a bit of a pickle. And speaking of challenges, it really makes you wonder, right? How do we keep track of all these different elements without dropping the ball? What tools or methods do you think could help us stay on top of things while still pushing the envelope in this eco-innovation landscape?
Spot on, Simon. Staying on top of it all, especially in the eco-innovation arena, demands robust tools and methods. First up, advanced project management software that's tailored for green initiatives can really help. These platforms can track progress, manage budgets with a focus on sustainability, and ensure compliance with environmental standards. Also, using data analytics to monitor the impact of these initiatives real time is crucial. By harnessing the power of big data, organizers can adjust their strategies based on actual performance versus expected outcomes, making sure every action counts toward better sustainability. Further, stakeholder engagement tools like digital feedback systems can keep communication open between tech developers, local communities, and event planners. This ensures everyone stays in the loop and cultural insights are fully integrated into technological deployments. Lastly, education plays a huge part. Training sessions for both tech teams and local participants on how to best merge modern innovations with traditional practices can foster better understanding and smoother implementation at scale. Now more than ever, we need smart, connected tools that don't just patch problems but proactively shape a sustainable future.
Absolutely, Joe. These tools sound just about right to navigate the tricky waters of eco-innovation effectively. It's all hinged on staying smart and connected while respecting both nature and tradition. It kind of opens up loads of possibilities for shaping a sustainable future with tech without sidelining our roots. Man, it's such an exciting time to be diving into this field, right? Can you imagine what's next in the world of eco-innovation as we keep refining these tools and techniques?
Absolutely thrilling times, Simon. And speaking of staying connected and impacting the future, let's pivot a bit here. Think about the sustainability in everyday events, like parties. There's a whole movement toward using biodegradable materials. Bamboo, recycled paper, bioplastics, you name it. It's a real biodegradable bonanza shaping up how we celebrate sustainably. How do you see these materials influencing our throwdowns?
Oh, Joe, biodegradable bonanza, huh? That's catchy, but let me throw a curveball here. Bamboo and recycled paper are great and all, but when you flip the coin, are they really up to snuff for every type of shindig? Like bamboo is sturdy, right? But it can get pricey, especially if you're going all out. And yeah, recycled paper is a wallet-friendlier option, probably easier on the pockets for big blowouts. But here's the kicker: durability. Can you imagine holding a slice of watermelon or a greasy burger on a flimsy paper plate? Total disaster scenario right there. So then there's bioplastics, a neat concept because they're meant to break down better than traditional plastics. But sometimes they need specific conditions to decompose properly, which isn't always ideal. I'm all for saving the planet with sustainable party gear, Joe, but I think we gotta weigh our options, maybe mix and match based on the bash type. What's your take on finding that perfect balance between eco-friendly and actually functional?
You're hitting the nail on the head there, Simon. It's like choosing between paper or plastic, but neither. But seriously, finding that sweet spot between earth-loving and party-throwing isn't child's play. Bamboo is top-notch, tough, looks cool, but yeah, it'll cost you a pretty penny if you're not careful. Now, recycled paper? Price is right, but at the risk of watching your burger meet a tragic end. Nobody wants that. And bioplastics? They sound ace until they don't decompose as promised, because, surprise, you need a PhD in composting conditions to get it right. Maybe the trick is layering these choices. Like a party buffet, offer a bit of everything based on what fits the event's vibe and needs. Sturdier options for the heavy hitters, lighter stuff for simple snacks. What do you think? Could this be our eco-friendly party toolkit moving forward?
Oh, Joe, talk about a sustainable smorgasbord. Layering the choices like that? Genius. It's like having your eco-friendly cake and eating it too. You cater to all tastes without compromising on our earth-loving mission. I'm totally on board with this buffet-style approach to party materials. Bring on the biodegradable bonanza. What's next for these futuristic feasts, man? Do we see maybe tech stepping in to help sort out what gets used where, making our jobs easier?
Definitely, Simon. Imagine a smart system at parties that scans your meal and instantly recommends the best eco-friendly plate option. Tech could totally revolutionize how we party sustainably. What do you think? Innovation overkill or the next big thing?
Ah, Joe, that's like a party from the future. But, let's pump the brakes for just a sec. Using tech to recommend plates? Sounds slick, but maybe it's a bit, overkill. Like, do we really need to complicate parties with tech that tells me whether to grab a bamboo plate or a bioplastic one based on my tuna tartare? I'm all for innovation. Don't get me wrong, but parties are supposed to be about simplicity and fun, right? I worry that adding gadgets might make it feel less chill and more chore-like. Could this techie approach alienate some folks who just want to toss up a simple backyard barbecue without syncing their dinnerware to an app first? Plus, talk about cost. Developing and implementing such systems could drive up the expenses of hosting. Strictly speaking, while it screams cutting edge, we got a balance between eco-consciousness and maintaining the party spirit, which is, straightforward and carefree. So yeah, I think sticking mostly to our eco-friendly materials buffet might still be the way to go for now. Still, impressive thinking there, buddy. What's your take? Any middle ground in tapping into tech without turning off the less tech-savvy revelers?
You're spot on, Simon. Tossing tech into the mix should ideally enhance, not complicate our party experiences, right? Keeping that eco-friendly, laid-back vibe is key. Here's a thought. Less about high-tech solutions at individual events and more about leveraging tech at the planning and supply chain stages. Like we could use tech to ensure efficient production, distribution, and disposal of these biodegradable materials. Maybe even smart inventory systems that help vendors predict and meet demand without overproducing, keeping it green by cutting waste. This approach keeps our backyard barbecues simple while still reaping some benefits from today's tech advancements in a behind-the-scenes kind of way. What do you say? Does this strike a better balance for our future shindigs?
Oh, Joe, that's like hitting a sweet spot, man. Using tech to streamline the back-end stuff, production, distribution, disposal, that's smart. Keeps our hands free at the party while all the eco-goodness is sorted out behind the curtains. I'm all in for making things efficient without guests needing a manual to enjoy their meals. And think about this. Could this method also help smaller suppliers or local producers get into the game? Like, if tech can help balance supply and demand, perhaps it gives a leg up to the little guys trying to offer sustainable options but struggling with logistics. How do you see this impacting local economies, dude?
Absolutely, Simon. This could totally be a game changer for local economies. Smaller suppliers could thrive by tapping into tech that levels the playing field, giving them real-time insights and access to broader markets without massive overheads. It's like giving David the same slingshot tech as Goliath. What do you think about pushing for more community-focused features in these tech solutions?
Definitely, Joe. Leveraging tech to boost local players is a brilliant move. Speaking of supporting the community and spicing up eco-initiatives, think about how vintage decor can transform party scenes. You know, kind of dialing back to thrift as the new chic, tossing retro vibes into celebrations not just for style, but sustainability too. Reusing old glam could cut down on waste big time compared to buying new, flashy decor every single time. What's your take on making throwbacks the highlight of future parties?
Simon, the nostalgia factor of vintage decor is definitely a massive draw. But I gotta wonder if everyone's down to dig the retro route. Sure, it cuts waste and gives parties a unique flair, kicking it old school and all. But what if people are looking for that sleek, modern look? They might not vibe with Granny's lace tablecloths or those funky old typewriters as centerpieces. And finding enough quality vintage stuff to deck out a big bash could be challenging or time-consuming. Yet if pulled off right, it's a standout way to party with purpose. Plus, it tells a story, adds depth to the decor, more than just superficial sparkles. So while thrifting can surely make waves for eco-conscious celebrations, we should maybe think about blending styles. Keeping options open could appeal to a wider crowd. What do you reckon? Could this mixed decor approach work? Or is it diluting the whole vintage charm?
Joe, mixing it up sounds like a plan to me. Why not mash the old with the new, right? We could definitely hit a sweet spot where everyone feels like they're getting something special. Vintage ain't just about granny stuff. It's about storytelling, reconnecting with past generations, and giving those pieces a second life, which is super green when you think about it. But, I see your point. It's true, not everyone wants a throwback bash. Maybe the trick is curating these items in a way that still feels fresh and modern, like using vintage accessories as highlights rather than the main show might just pull in the skeptics. Plus, this approach, blending old and new, might even inspire more folks to consider sustainability without feeling like they're stepping into a time capsule. What do you think? Does that blend give us all a better shot at keeping parties both chic, like eco-smart, without scaring off the modern aesthetic lovers?
Absolutely, Simon. We're almost redefining what modern means by blending it with the vintage, creating a whole new era of party aesthetics. It's about balancing that eco-conscious mindset with a contemporary appeal. Really, it's crafting a future classic. Who's to say our sustainable soirees couldn't set the new standard in celebration chic?
Oh, that's a killer concept, Joe. Mixing vintage with modern? It's like we're not just throwing a party, we're crafting an experience. Starting a trend where eco-friendly is also effortlessly cool. Imagine guests walking in and bam, every piece has a story, but it's all sleek, nothing out of place. This could totally inspire even the doubters to think about sustainability when they're planning their own events. Could really shake things up for how people think about what's chic and, responsible hosting.
For sure, Simon. It's like we're building bridges between memories and modern style. But let's think even deeper here. While savvy mix-ups can spark interest, there's a solid slice of partygoers who might just see vintage as, outdated rather than retro cool. How do we ensure this trend doesn't become like a niche thing? For widespread appeal, maybe integrating tech might boost this old meets new vibe. Imagine an app that showcases the history or origin stories of these vintage items at the party, turning each piece into an interactive experience rather than just decor. Could this techie touch help meld the past with the future, making it resonate more with those who might not automatically lean towards vintage?
Whoa, Joe, blending tech with vintage to boost engagement? That's bang on the money. Here's a rundown. By spotlighting each item's backstory, you kind of transform it from mere decor into an exhibit, a conversation starter. It's like saying, hey, this isn't just any old lamp. This lamp lit up many midnight reads back in the 50s. And thinking about the stats, using vintage decor significantly lessens environmental impact. The EPA points out that tons of usable goods end up in landfills yearly, which could totally be bypassed if items see a second life at some shindig. Plus, according to a Nielsen report, sustainability is increasingly influencing consumer behavior, especially among younger generations. So tapping into this can definitely cater both to eco-friendly enthusiasts and those drawn to unique narratives. And let's not forget, marketplace apps, where people already hunt for pre-loved treasures, have boomed in popularity, which means there's already a thriving culture around repurposing and valuing vintage finds. So yeah, leveraging an app to enhance understanding and appreciation could really solidify vintage vibes as more than a trend. It becomes part of our social fabric. Could this be the bridge we're looking for, bringing history forward in a relatable, modern way? Huh?
Absolutely, Simon. It's like turning every party into a mini time machine. You're not just sipping cocktails, you're sipping through decades.
Exactly, Joe. And think about it. When people connect personally with the past through these items, they're more likely to value preservation, right? It's like cultivating a deeper appreciation for reusing and recycling without even preaching about it. Each vintage piece at a party isn't just decor, it's part of a larger narrative, contributing directly to waste reduction. And on top of this eco-friendly aspect, you've got the cool flair it adds, making events memorable. When folks leave a party chatting about that awesome old-school record player or the quirky 70s lampshade, that word-of-mouth buzz creates more interest in vintage goods. It not only promotes sustainability, but also kindles interest in thrifting more broadly. Plus, engaging younger partygoers with tech lets them see firsthand how old can be gold, you know? Meshing education with entertainment ensures the message sticks in a fun way. This could really help make sustainable choices the norm rather than the exception. I mean, who doesn't want their event to be both planet-friendly and uniquely stylish, right?
Definitely, Simon. And imagine the ripple effect. Today's party becomes tomorrow's Instagram post, turning vintage vibes viral. Suddenly, it's not just about being eco-friendly, it's about being on trend and culturally savvy too. This could totally reshape what we consider trendy.
Speaking of eco-friendly party vibes, Joe, let me tell you about this absolute disaster with DIY compostable setups. So there was this one time, tried to go all out green for this outdoor bash, right? We got these biodegradable paper plates, thinking we were doing Mother Earth a solid. And then boom, a sudden downpour, like nature wanted to test our commitment or something, and those plates just kinda dissolved. Like magic, but way less entertaining. Guests holding what turned into paper mache in their hands. And oh, the wildlife. Ever seen a squirrel confused by biodegradable confetti? It's like an accidental party for them, too. Who knew going green could be such a riot, huh?
Oh man, Simon, that's comedy gold. Eco-friendly disasters turning into wildlife raves. The journey to sustainability sure has its twists. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in and laughing along with us. Make sure you're back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for more of our antics on Infinite Podcast. We've got plenty more stories and ideas to unpack. Catch you then.